North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. Greetings, my name is John David Wells. What do we do here? So glad you asked that question. We report the news, honestly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We point out both. I make commentary. That's not the news. That's just my opinion, just as valuable as yours. And then we debate. We debate the commentary, we debate the facts, we debate the analysis and the news. It's what we do here on the Wells Report. We're glad to have you here with us. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. We've got a chat room going. You can find that on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. And by all means, check us out. Check us out. We do this every day, Monday through Friday, from 2 until 5 p.m. Central Time. We do it live. And, of course, it's available as a podcast in lots of other different places, and you can find those almost everywhere. But what you do is you check those out, and you can listen to your heart's content when you feel like it. It is the Wells Report. Thanks very much. So there was a campaign rally hosted by former President Donald Trump in I guess, let me double check this. I think it was Alabama. Let me double check here. Alabama Republican. There's an Alabama Republican involved here. His name is Tommy Tuberville. He's a senator, and he's being called out for racism today. All right, and I just realized that I thought that I jumped to the conclusion that this was in Alabama, but I'm not exactly sure. I'll find out here in just a couple of minutes. But let's get on with the story because there's some very interesting things in it. Alabama Republican Senator Tommy Tuberville pushed a racist narrative about black people and crime at a campaign rally hosted by former President Donald Trump on Saturday night. Now, what we've got here is we've got an interesting thing here in the United States, and that is the morphing of honest, serious, disgusting, human and inhuman bigotry in the earlier part of America. It's some half century behind us now or more. Anyway, we have honest to goodness human crime, racism as a background of the United States. But now what we have is political exploitation of racism, with a particular party seen as the arbiter of what is racist and what is not, sustained by the mainstream media. This is USA Today. Okay, this is not an opinion piece. This is from Murdy and Zanga, all right, who wrote this for USA Today. And this is supposedly news. Alabama, this is where we do the analysis for fact and bias. Alabama Senator Tommy Tuberville pushed a racist narrative about black people and crime at a campaign rally hosted by former President Donald Trump on Saturday night. Well, is it a racist narrative? That's the question. Now, the conventional wisdom is, my God, this is a racist narrative about black people and crime. Let me read on. As Republicans push crime as an election issue, Tuberville contended Democrats back reparations for descendants of slavery because, quote, they think the people who do crime are owed that, unquote. He goes on to say, quote, they are not soft on crime, they're pro-crime. They want crime. They want crime because they want to take over what you've got. They want to control what you have. They want reparations because they think the people that do the crime are owed that. By the way, this was in Nevada. This rally was in Nevada as Trump was in Nevada campaigning for U.S. Senate candidate Adam Laxalt. By the way, Adam Laxalt is the son or grandson, I believe, of Paul Laxalt, at one point the most powerful senator in the United States. Paul Laxalt was a heavy hitter in the Republican Party in the 60s. So anyway, Trump was in Nevada campaigning for U.S. Senate candidate Adam Laxalt and gubernatorial candidate Joe Lombardi. make that Joe Lombardo ahead of the November midterm elections. A call for reparations for descendants of African slaves has been around for decades and has grown in recent years. Reparations would involve an apology for slavery, payments, land grants, and more. Now, before he was elected to Congress in 2020 as a senator, Tuberville coached football for a decade at Auburn University. In a statement, NAACP President Derek Johnson called out Tuberville's remarks as flat out racist. Flat out racist. His words promote a centuries-old lie about black people that throughout history have resulted in the most dangerous policies and violent attacks on our community. We've seen this before from the far right. We've seen what they can do when they take power. He then pointed to the January 6th, 2021 attack on the Capitol, saying the real criminals may be in Tuberville's orbit. GOP Representative Don Bacon said on NBC News Meet the Press that he did not find the comments racist, but he said that Tuberville needs to be more polite. I'm not going to say he's being racist, but I wouldn't use that language. I'd be more polite. Former South Carolina State Representative Bakari Sellers called out Tuberville for his comments. Quote, Tommy Tuberville can go to hell, unquote. The fact is he made tens of millions of dollars off unpaid black men as a football coach. He literally has the stature because people went out there and assumed the risk, incurred the risk of concussions, playing hard, and everything. All right. So let's talk a little bit about this. All right. So what we've seen here is we've seen once again that Republicans are going to be successful in the 2022 elections, the midterms. They are going to be successful. And the Democrat Party is throwing everything they possibly can at Republicans to try to besmirch them in any way, shape, or form. I want to go through this, what would be called the key topic here. Here are his comments that people are having trouble with. He contends that Democrats back reparations for descendants of slavery because they think the people who do crime are owed that. They're not soft on crime. They're pro-crime. They want crime. They want crime because they want to take over what you've got. They want to control what you have. They want reparations because they think the people who do the crime are owed that, unquote. Why would he say something like that? I think you would say something like that because it was exactly what Democrats were saying during the BLM riots of the summer of 2020. They were saying that this was social justice. So it was social justice to burn down restaurants, social justice to loot businesses, large and small, social justice to burn federal buildings and police stations, social justice to shine lasers in the eyes of police officers, social justice to kick people to death in the street, social justice to beat women standing in front of their businesses trying to protect them with a 2x4 as social justice. So in other words, from a standpoint of, say, for example, the looting, would that not have been reparations for what these people have supposedly endured? I mean, I may be wrong here. And by all means, if you think I am, please say so. But slavery, for all intents and purposes, ended in the United States in 1863. It took a while. Racism lasted far longer. But slavery and racism. Nobody alive in the United States has suffered slavery. They have suffered racism, but they have not suffered slavery. So what I'm trying to figure out is, okay, so what is it that we have here regarding the idea of reparations in the first place? None of these people dealt with slavery, except as something that was in their family background. So just exactly what are the reparation things being talked about? What is that all about? And two, I'm sorry, social justice to justify crime pretty much, I think, justifies Tommy Tuberville's statements. They are not soft on crime, they're pro crime. They want crime. They want crime because they think that people who do crime are owed some kind of reparation. Is that true? Is that real? And moreover, is that racist? Or is it being called out as racist because it's painful to hear? It is painful to hear. I, like an awful lot of Americans, watch the news. Of course, I watch way too much news. I got to be perfectly honest with you. I watch way too much news. And I am listening to a mainstream media that on a routine basis talks about the horrors of racism and so on and so forth, and yet continually shows scenes of crimes from one end of this country that could indeed be of a racial nature, if you choose to define them that way or interpret them that way. Why is that? I mean, think about it. Think about the video that you see on news every single day. Who are committing the crimes? So by the standard of the mainstream media trying to, like USA Today, trying to cast Tommy Tuberville in the role of the racist villain, let me ask you this. When you turn on CNN or MSNBC or ABC, CBS, and NBC, who are you seeing committing crimes? Should they stop doing that? Does that paint them as racist as, say, USA Today trying to paint Tommy Tuberville in that mold? Is that where we are here? Now, I've talked an awful lot about the fact that racism is just being used as a bludgeon for anybody that disagrees with the politics of the day, certainly the politics of the mainstream media, which are indistinguishable between that of the most radical parts of the Democrat Party. So what do you think? So Tommy Tuberville says they want crime. They're pro-crime. They push reparations because they think that people who are doing crime are owed that. That is right out of the Democrat talking points during the BLM riots of the summer of 2020. Hey, these are social justice protests. They even called them that. As we saw burning restaurants, Wendy's to be exact, other burning buildings, fireworks being used as weapons, and on and on and on. I mean, we saw those people pulling off those riots. How many of them were white supremacists, for example? This is the Wells Report, back with more in just a moment. You are listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172. And so, is Tommy Tuberville a racist? Is he being racial? Or is this essentially racism as a political lever? What do you say? What is your answer to that question? It seems to me that what we have here is we have a willingness, and we've seen this. We have a willingness to reward people of all different stripes. We have a way of rewarding people for political effect. That's what we're doing here. In other words, and since the Democrats seem to be doing it more than anybody else, it seems to me they believe that their success in the 2022 elections, now in less than 30 days, is paved with taxpayer money being doled out to people, which of course will enhance inflation. Is reparations just another form of that? And if anybody challenges that, does that turn into obviously a racist statement? You see, there are all kinds of problems with reparations in the first place. Okay, so let's say that reparations actually occur. Let's say that there's an actual honest national debate for reparations. So, if indeed there is an agreement about reparations, do we elicit a promise from America's minority lobby for no more use of racism in any way, shape, or form? In other words, does that absolutely close off the use of slavery and racism forever? In other words, yeah, you can have reparations, but you can't ever evoke slavery. You can't evoke slavery or racism again. Would they make that deal? A one-time payment for this generation for a complete reset on racism in the United States. In other words, you can't teach America's racist past. You can't teach America's slavery past beyond the facts. Critical race theory goes right out the window because it doesn't exist. It's moot because reparations have been paid. Do you think they'd make that deal? Do you think that deal would be made? I don't think so. Because I think, once again, like so many other things, politics loves a problem but hates a solution. If reparations is the solution, what does it solve? Does it end constant complaining and constant evoking of slavery as a stain on this nation? Does that end that forever? I'm sure that racism can be rebuilt. Look at CRT. Most Americans are so far past racism, it's not even much of an issue in the first place among just regular people. But the exploiters of racism, well, they're trying to train a new generation of racists. That's what CRT and that's what this indoctrination in school is all about, where white kids are told they have privilege and black kids are told they are oppressed, where people in businesses are forced to admit their intrinsic racism because they've had this white privilege conferred on us by who? Have you ever evoked white privilege? You can't do this to me because I have white privilege. Well, I've never done that either. I can't think of anybody who has. More in a moment. This is the Wells Report. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. This radio broadcast it's actually more than a radio broadcast. It's also a podcast, is completely independent. What you see is something that I am building. It does not have any support corporately. It doesn't need any support corporately because for the first time in my life, instead of working for a corporation, I'm working for myself. That means that I have no visible means of support beyond you. But that's okay. Because in my career, coming up on my radio career, coming up on 50 years at this point, the people that have always been there for me are listeners, people like you. You've always been there for me. Now I'm in a situation where I'm doing something like what the Eagles did. They wanted to break the stranglehold on record distribution by the major record corporations. So what they did is they produced a record all by themselves. And then they made an agreement with Walmart to distribute it. Well, Walmart went directly to the people with the Eagles, one of the Eagles albums. Well, I'm doing that too, essentially. The same thing. I'm coming directly to you. If you'd like to support this broadcast, there are ways to do it that don't cost any money. You can subscribe to it. You can share it with your friends. You can hit the like button. There are ways that you can throw some money at us. Patreon.com/The Wells Report. Patreon.com/The Wells Report. Patreon.com/The Wells Report. It's $1 or something along that line. It would be fantastic if you could help us out. I sincerely appreciate it. Because we bring you the news, we analyze the news, we make commentary, and we debate. And we do it every single day. And we hope it's of some value to you. So think it over if you would. I appreciate it. So we've been talking a little bit about what is a charge of racism against Tommy Tuberville based on the fact that he made some explosive comments. And I'm trying to figure out, and this is not me, I'm not defending Tommy Tuberville. I'm not trying to roast Tommy Tuberville. I'm not trying to cast aspersions on those people that would charge Tommy Tuberville for racism. I'm coming to you with questions. I'm coming to you asking for what your beliefs are. I will postulate, if you will, that racism has morphed from actual punishment of people based on skin color to essentially punishment of people because of skin color. You know, I'm talking about those people who are seen as racists, and they're everywhere. For example, people who voted for Donald Trump are all racists. As a matter of fact, if you're white, you are a racist. And the only reason that you don't admit it is because you're just dreaming that you're not guilty of it. I'm not dreaming I'm not guilty of racism. I'm not racist. Never has been, never have been, never will be. And to be called a racist is infuriating, so especially considering who I vote for. Just because you vote for this guy, you're a racist. That's all it is. That's all there is to it. Well, okay. Exploitation of racism is different than racism. The use of racism as a political bludgeon is different than racism. Is that what we're seeing here? It's possible. And I want you to answer whether you believe it is or isn't. Give us a call, 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. I think people more or less get along pretty well. I really do. I think that among even the most regular folk, just common people, racism is the last thing on their mind. We're all busy. We're all trying to be good members of our community. There's no room for that here. Unless, of course, you're trying to push politics, in which case there's room for it everywhere. And racism is obviously a crime against humanity. It's true. But I think we're, by and large, over it, unless it makes a good political bludgeon for someone. Now, I believe that Tommy Tuberville was speaking plainly, truth to power. And people are saying, well, we'd be a little bit more polite and so on and so forth. And I have to ask, why? Why would we be more polite? It doesn't make any difference how polite we are. It doesn't make any difference how polite I am. What happens to me is I get called a racist just because I ask serious questions. Because I say racism is a tool, not a reality. Well, you're a racist. No, I'm not. I have nothing to do with it. Absolutely not. Stop with the victim card. It's always something with charges of racism, unless you ignore people like Gary's statements. Let me give you an example of that. Okay? Here's the situation. I'm not responsible for Gary's statements. Gary, by the way, is taking part in the chat room. Gary's responsible for Gary's statements. I'm responsible for my statements. I'm not playing a victim card. I'm not a victim of anything. Except, of course, being called a racist when I wasn't. Being called stupid when I'm not. All because I disagree with somebody's political agenda. Being stomped on by the media, what have you. Because I happen to disagree with the leftist policy du jour. Politics loves a problem and hates a solution. They say, okay, reparations might be a solution. Okay, what do we get for our money? We give you reparations, what do we get back? Do we get back the end of racism as a political tool? Because if reparations is all we have to do to get that done, maybe it's worth it. I say that in jest. And by the way, what about all the money that's handed out as welfare payments for people that happen to be in a group of people that would qualify for slavery reparations? Do we keep track of all the money that they've gotten and take that off the reparation total? Is that what we do? Do we elicit promises from mainstream media sources that since we've paid for reparations, then slavery is no longer on the table for the use as a stain against the United States and the people who live here, none of whom have ever participated in slavery? See, we seem to be responsible for what happened hundreds of years ago. And so we have to pay that. Is that right? Again, what do we get for our money? What do we get? Yeah, some welfare benefited white women. Some welfare benefited black women. Some welfare benefits all these people. But of the white people that are, say, for example, recipients of welfare, how many of them had slavery in their background? Probably not many, if any. Sharecroppers, possible. But they weren't slaves. No, you see, so when it comes to welfare and somebody saying, well, we have to do reparations based on slavery, there is a color divide there. There is a color divide. Once again, I'm not arguing that white women have benefited most. I'm not at all arguing with that. As a matter of fact, I think that's probably true. You're missing my point. What I said was, if we do pay reparations, do the people who have a legitimate claim to have slavery in their family background, does that welfare get taken off the top? Yes or no? Once again, I'm not saying either is correct. I'm asking a question. This is the debate part. I'm responsible for my own actions. I didn't own slaves. I didn't mistreat people. I didn't steal land. I didn't do any of that. True. Neither did I. By the way, I was doing some research on Friday regarding this particular issue. I was doing some research. Since 1776, about 200,000 slaves were imported into the United States. It's a little less than that, actually. About 200,000 slaves. And the immediate response was, no, back up 400 years in the North American continent, blah, 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 blah. There are 2 million slaves. Well, now, wait a second. The United States didn't appear until 1776. So the slavery industry, the slave trade in the United States, is not in the millions. Now, please understand, in the hundreds of thousands is bad enough. Okay, don't get me wrong. But I'm just pointing these things out. These are things that we don't know. I don't believe that's the case. I'm not talking about how many slaves were in the United States by 1865, okay? I'm talking about how many were imported into the United States, the slave trade. All right? That's what I'm saying. You need to listen to what I'm saying, Isaac. You just do. You have to listen to what I say. This is how we start building a consensus. Okay, you've taken issue with some of the things I've said. So Isaac, what I want you to do is this. Let's say that reparations are on the table right this very minute. You define what fair reparations are. Go, Isaac. As a matter of fact, you want to call me on the telephone, you know the number. 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. Isaac, give me a buzz. Let's just go ahead and put let's put reparations on the table. Let's do it. What is a fair payment? How do we determine who's who? How do we make all this happen? Well, of course it would be, Jesse, but that's not the point. What I'm trying to say is this. I am pretty sure that if reparations were paid, that would end complaints of slavery and most complaints of racism in the United States, as most racism was because of slavery among the black community in the United States. Okay, that's a different issue. The World War II veterans denied their benefits should be compensated. I agree. Okay, but that's not what we're talking about here. That's not what we're talking about. And welfare, the blanket term that welfare is fair payment enough doesn't cover it, because not everybody who got welfare were people that had slavery in their background. Come on, we got to focus here. We got to focus. Okay, there were reparations that were offered by the United States. Okay, there were reparations that were offered by the United States. Okay? 40 acres and a mule. All right? 40 acre. Well, no, there will not be reparations unless it ends it. Jesse just said, no, wait a second. Would you really think that reparations would actually end the use of slavery and racism as a tool? Well, they're not going to get paid unless it does. What are we going to do? Just pay a whole bunch of money and get nothing out of it and still be called racists? And still have this quote unquote vaporous white privilege? What's the point of paying reparations if there's not some sort of outcome that heals the nation? So let's get with it. Let's get with it. The opening bid was 40 acres and a mule. Okay? It never happened, but that's what was out there. It's just a conversation starter. I appreciate your historic background on this. U.S. Congress stopped that practice and gave it back to the former Confederate leaders. Whatever. Let's start with 40 acres and a mule. So what does that look like in 2022? And once again, what do we get back out of it? So apparently, in order to pay reparations, that means 67% of the people of the United States are still guilty of slavery, even though we had nothing to do with it. And we're going to pay people that have had nothing to do with slavery in their entire lives for slavery reparations. Okay. What did I do to have to pay that money? That's thing number one. Thing number two, what do I get back? What I'm saying is that if I say, for example, maybe slavery reparations is a good idea. If I never hear anybody call me a racist again. I never hear that white people have privilege again. I never hear that America was a horrifyingly terrible slave nation again. What am I saying? See, you're not answering my question. Isaac says, in 2022, compensation to fought in World War II but never got benefits, pay them. That's a different issue. If there were people that fought in World War II and didn't get their World War II benefits, yeah, pay them right now, immediately. Those who were being beaten for peaceful protest, pay them. Okay, you're not answering my question. I'm talking about paying everybody who has a slave background. I'm talking about doing that, and I'm talking about what that looks like. Let's get busy. This is the Wells Report. You're listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. So someone finally said, okay, reparations for people that are here in the United States with slavery backgrounds, that people had ancestors who were slaves. Okay. So I started with 330 million people, and I multiplied that by 0.13, which is the latest number of, say, African Americans in the United States, Black Americans in the U.S. Let's assume that every single one of them has slavery in their background. Not true, but let's just say that's the case. And let's say we paid them $20,000. $20,000. Okay? So that's thousands, and that's millions, and that's billions. It's $858 billion. It's $858 billion. We just paid $1.9 trillion to the people of the United States for this infrastructure bill, this America repair bill, whatever it was. Okay? 1.9 trillion. This is 858 billion. $858 billion. Is it worth $858 billion to get rid of critical race theory and white privilege and the default setting that if you say something political that disagrees with the agenda du jour, you are a racist? In other words, everything having to do with racism in the United States, affirmative action, gets rid of affirmative action, gets rid of everything. Is it worth $858 billion? And that's $20,000 to every black woman or every black person in the United States. Does that work? And is that something worth considering? 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. Lois, for Pete's sakes, isn't there a more interesting topic? Well, actually, you know what? It's on the front page of the news today that Tommy Tuberville brought this up. Tommy Tuberville brought this up. It's on the front page of USA Today. Racism in the United States. You cannot go a day without somebody being decried as a racist, being accused of racism, accused of profiting from racism. You can't go a single day. What is it worth $858 billion to remove that as something that we deal with every single day in the United States? And people say they'll never be happy. Reparations are like stimulus and welfare checks. No, reparations are different. With reparations, there is an outcome. There is an outcome. No more racism. Nothing based on race. Absolutely not. In other words, when people say, well, you know, these particular congressional districts, for example, were drawn with racism in mind. Well, okay, if there's no racism, if we spend $858 billion giving everybody that had slavery in their background a $20,000 check, what's that worth? What is it worth to never have to deal with racism in the United States again? That's what people give up when they are paid for their umbrage. And once again, in my particular point of view, so I'll use this camera, in my particular point of view, I'm paying people that never had anything to do with slavery. And I'm paying these people because I'm being told to, but I never had anything to do with slavery. We're saying we're going to pay $20,000 for people that had nothing to do with anything having to do with what reparations are based on. Maybe we should start the question there. What are we paying reparations? Exactly what are we paying reparations for? By the way, Native Americans have not been paid anything what they're owed. No, I'm sorry. There is that was one of the things I was going to point out here. If there's anybody on this continent that deserves reparations, it's Native Americans. And the problem with paying Native Americans reparations, where do you start? Where do you start? All the broken treaties between the governments and the nations. Where do you start? But that's another question for another day. Yeah, some were paid. They were given land. And then it was taken away when they found gold on it. Come on, man. I'm not disagreeing with you. You said pay the same amount of money that were paid to the Japanese internment camp citizens. In World War II, Japanese Americans were were sent to internment camps because they didn't think they could be trusted because of Japan's sneak attack on Pearl Harbor. That was horrifying racism. We paid reparations to those people, but we actually had people walking around that suffered it. $20,000. Okay, $20,000, $858 billion, and you never ever get to discuss racism again. You never get to complain about it again. You never get to teach critical race theory again. You never get to complain about the fact that you lost a job because, say, for example, you have the wrong skin color, which has happened to just about everybody in the United States at one point or another. I think it's a wonderful idea. Let's talk it over. This is the Wells Report, back with more next hour. Stay put. Thanks very much. I appreciate it, folks. We got hour number 2 coming up in just a moment. North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. What do we do here? We report the news. We analyze the news for fact. We make commentary. And then we debate. Got a great debate going on right now. Last hour, we talked about reparations. Because during a Nevada rally, Tommy Tuberville pointed out that, the Democrat Party want reparations. For what? Nobody that would get reparations suffered what the reparations are being paid for, and nobody who is paying for reparations had anything to do with that either. So we're paying money to people for something they didn't deal with, and the people who are paying are people who have nothing to do with it in the first place either. So what's that all about? And what are we talking about? 20 grand? That's what we talked about last hour. And what do we get for our money? I think that was a really good debate, and I hope you enjoy it. Go back and check it out if you missed it here on the Wells Report. So USA Today is arguably the national newspaper. It's a great newspaper, mostly. It's biased. But then again, what news source in America is not? And what they're doing right now, the editorial board of USA Today, they're talking about the Republican Party and what they have to do to move forward. And this is the first of a couple of opinion pieces that are currently in USA Today. Republicans must move past Trump for the sake of the party's future and the nation's. Really? America needs to purge Donald Trump from our system, but for that to happen, Republicans must first purge Trump from the party's leadership. To have a newspaper say something like this is amazingly frightening. This kind of closes the book on whether or not the mainstream media is anything other than a political propaganda tool. This is the editorial board of USA Today. These people make decisions every single day about what news is in your newspaper, and they say that the Republican Party has to move past Trump for the sake of the party's future and the nation's. Why does the Republican Party have anything? What does the Republican Party have anything to do with the nation's future? Right now, if I was in Republican Party leadership, I'd start thinking about whether or not I was going to be the person who was running the Republican Party when it imploded and disappeared completely. Republican or political parties only exist to serve the voters. Does any Republican listening to this broadcast think the Republican Party serves your interests? Anyone? For that matter, does anybody think the Democrat Party actually serves your interests? The answer is no. The Democrat Party and the Republican Party do the exact same thing. They serve their own interests. And that is all. Unless, of course, you can point to something that isn't described by. Please, by all means, tell me why I'm wrong on this. Anyway, Tim Swearens is writing this. This is the first in the series of columns exploring the future of the Republican Party and the conservative movement. And it goes like this. Donald Trump, for more than 6 years, has dominated the Republican Party, dictating its positions on policy, rewarding his loyalists, and punishing dissenters. Sure. Today, more than 20 months after the former president begrudgingly left the White House, the grand old party remains largely under Trump's control. Trump's leadership has produced mixed results for Republicans and conservatives. The Trump wave, particularly in swing states like Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, undoubtedly pushed the red tide to new heights in 2016. In 2017, after Trump's upset victory over Hillary Clinton the previous November, Republicans held more power on the federal and state levels combined than any point in nearly a century. Trump's political strength waned quickly. Republicans lost the House in 2018. 2 years later, voters rejected Trump's bid for a second term and gave Democrats control of the Senate. In a month, after the midterm elections are complete, Americans America's political landscape could look dramatically different once again. Republicans are favored to gain control of the U.S. House of Representatives and might capture a Senate majority, rendering President Joe Biden the lamest of ducks with more than 2 years left in his term. But what would the Republicans want to do with that power? I have an answer. They would want to do nothing, because that's what they do every time they have that kind of power. They do nothing. In my particular opinion, the Republican Party does not have what it takes to lead a great nation, because they're not trying to lead a great nation. They're just trying to do Republican business. Well, what exactly is it? No one really knows. But I do know that it doesn't take care of the people of the United States. As a matter of fact, what I find fascinating about the whole thing is when somebody says, "You know what? We need a government that actually puts America first." People go, "My God, an American first agenda?" What? One of the most provocative things I say on this broadcast is that the American government ought to be working for the benefit of the American people. Do you believe that you're being benefited by the government of the United States or hindered by it? I mean, if you don't think you're being hindered by it, wait until tax time. I mean, if you don't think about the fact that you're being hindered, look at the national debt numbers again. It's past $31 trillion now. That money is so huge, it doesn't even exist. And that's the government that we continually empower. And so these people are saying, the real problem is, it's Republicans. Actually, it's Trump. Donald Trump is the problem. Donald Trump can bring not just the Republican Party down, but the whole nation. What are you guys talking about? I don't have any idea, but these people, these are the people that are deciding what news is in USA Today every day. It's the editorial board of the newspaper. They are decidedly leftist. And just like Pravda, just like Izvestia, USA Today is nothing more than the Democrat Party propaganda page. That's all it is. And this proves it. Are you okay with that? No, I don't read USA Today anyway. Okay. All right, fine. This is indicative of where our media is. And by the way, I read USA Today every single day. Do you know why? Because of all the leftist crazy propaganda rags in the United States, this is the least of those. Until today, maybe, because of all of this garbage they're writing. So let's talk a little bit more about what they think the future of the Republican Party and the nation is because of Donald Trump. What will Republicans do with all the power? How would a Republican legislative agenda confront the nation's biggest challenges? What's the future of conservatism in the United States? What does it even mean to be a conservative in 2022? Well, I can answer those questions. Let's see. What would Republicans do with all that power? Already answered it. Nothing. How would a Republican legislative agenda confront the nation's biggest challenges? Well, it would confront the nation's biggest challenges. It would. It would confront crime. It would confront inflation. It would confront all of these big challenges. But it wouldn't do anything about them. It just confront them. We are going to take care of this, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that, and because this is that, and that is this, we have done this and that. Has crime gone down? I don't know. Bill, has crime gone down? Republican Party. Let's see, what is the future of conservatism in the United States? I can answer that too. If the Democrat and Republican parties don't get their crap together in a big hurry, the only thing that will be in the future of the United States is conservatism. Arguably, Donald Trump was the American people firing the current political process in the United States. They didn't get the news. The political process, they didn't get the news. They just wanted to make all their misfortune Donald Trump's fault. It's not Donald Trump's fault. Donald Trump is evidence that everything that you've done is your fault and you got fired for it, but you don't want to admit it. And that's not just the Republican Party, that's the Democrat Party too. What does it even mean to be a conservative in 2022? It means this, because I am one. It means that if you guys don't get your crap together, something else is going to happen, like the Conservative Party of the United States. Because you know there are conservative Democrats. You do know that, right? And there are plenty of conservative Republicans that don't have a party either. Conservative Democrats don't have a party. Conservative Republicans don't have a party. Conservative independents, we don't have a party. Unless, of course, we create one. The Conservative Party of the United States. It's actually out there, but nobody does anything with it. And that party would be responsible for standing for the Constitution of the United States and the rule of law and simplicity in government so that everybody can understand exactly what's going on. The Constitution of the United States is 4 pages. The Bill of Rights, I believe, is 2. The first 10 amendments. It's simple, and yet it's genius. Most genius things are pretty simple when you get right down to it. There's one other big unanswered question, according to this op-ed piece. It's the most important. Can Americans finally move past a disgraced former president who was twice impeached, who is the subject of multiple criminal investigations, who continues to lie about the 2020 election, and who fomented a riot at the U.S. Capitol that threatened the tenets of our democracy? Are you seeing this? This is outrageous. It's outrageous, biased crap. Garbage. Can Republicans finally move past a disgraced former president? Let's see, who disgraced the president? Oh, well, that would be USA Today. So they're responsible for the president's disgrace. Not what he's gone through or not what he's done. The people watching what he's done have disgraced him. Well, now, wait a minute. He was twice impeached. No. Actually, he was given 2 impeachments that proved absolutely nothing. He's the subject of multiple criminal investigations. No, the biggest one that I've seen so far isn't criminal because there have been no indictments yet. There have been no indictments yet. A criminal investigation is nothing unless it ends up in an indictment. When we have an indictment, and there may be, you can say, okay, now he's under criminal investigation. As a matter of fact, the biggest thing against President Trump right now is a civil suit filed by an attorney general of New York. A civil suit, and the reason it's a civil suit is because they can't prove a criminal suit. Who continues to lie about the 2020 election results? Who says he's lying? I know you stomp anybody who says there are problems with the 2020 election, but is that a lie? And fomented a riot at the U.S. Capitol. Wasn't he impeached for that? And didn't that impeachment fail? So did he actually foment the riot? This is the Wells Report. There's more in a moment. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Hi. Glad you're here. So, what we're doing here is we're listening to USA Today ramble on now in two op-ed pieces some 30 days ahead of the midterm elections about how the Republican Party has to move on from Trump. And they have to do it for the sake of the party and the nation. You know what? The Republican Party is not essential to the United States of America. Neither is the Democrat Party. Neither of those parties is essential. What those parties do or don't do have nothing to do with the future of this nation. And we know that's true. How do we know that's true? Well, because the Democrat Party hasn't arrested anybody yet. Neither is the Republican Party. There have been plenty of Democrat attempts to destroy the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, the Sixth Amendment, and on down the line, but they haven't been successful yet. As a matter of fact, they tried to defend a supposed right that didn't exist. And were really, really angry when the Supreme Court of the United States said, sorry, the Supreme Court of the United States didn't create anything because you cannot amend the Constitution in a courtroom. And so what we have is this assertion by USA Today that the Republican Party is essential to the nation, but only if they give up Trump. That's preposterous. The reason Trump is in the Republican Party is because of the ineffectiveness of the Republican Party. The ineffectiveness of Republican Party policy. The fecklessness of what the Republican Party tries to attempt to get done and yet can't. The Republican Party in 2022 is defined by their failures. And when the people of the United States handed the Republican Party an opportunity to see the error of their ways, they simply rejected it and did what they do with the American people that got them in this trouble in the first place. Simply ignored the whole thing. Donald Trump? People of the United States? That's what the Republican Party is famous for. That's what the Republican Party has gotten done. What should the Republican Party do? Glad you asked. Should they get rid of Donald Trump? No. No, the people should get rid of Donald Trump. That has nothing to do with the Republican Party. The Republican Party needs to start actually doing the people's business, just like I told a congressional committee, just like I told a congressional conference nearly 8 years ago. You have to start doing the people's business. You have to get you have to get the government of the United States out of the public health business because they suck at it. And we've got proof. You have to fix the tax system. You have to get rid of this ridiculous tax code. And you sure as hell have to get rid of 87,000 brand new IRS agents willing to use deadly force. It's ridiculous. That's what the Republican Party needs to do. The Republican Party needs to provide secure borders to this country. That's what the Republican Party needs to do. The Republican Party needs to remake the national pension system. Social Security is a ballooning millstone of the biggest debt item in the United States budget, and it's getting worse every single year. There are a lot of things the Republican Party can do, but I've been watching the Republican Party get nothing done. Can't get nothing done. I'll give you an example. If the Democrat Party wants to, enact all this garbage, instead of the Republican Party not voting for it, why don't they just leave town? Democrat parties have done that in state legislatures all over the country. Republicans haven't done it yet. Why? Because they haven't got the guts. This is the Wells Report. We'll be back with more coming up in just a couple of moments. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. We're bringing you the news. In this particular case, we're bringing you what the news isn't. And what the news isn't is what USA Today is peddling today. What they are peddling is a series of columns exploring the future of the Republican Party and the conservative movement in the United States. They've asserted that in order for the Republican Party to survive, they've got to get rid of Donald Trump. They even use the word purge. Purge Donald Trump. 74 million people voted for that guy in the last election, but the USA Today thinks they ought to purge him. Why? Well, because they want the Republican Party to get on with what they've always done, which is facilitate Democrat Party policy goals. Donald Trump did not do that. Now, the Republican Party didn't know what to do with Donald Trump, so basically they ignored him and essentially refused to defend him. Meanwhile, the president, Donald Trump, the former president, what he's done is he's worked incredibly hard at his own expense to get as many Republicans elected to office as possible. USA Today is also pointing out things like, my God, there are some 300 election deniers running for office. Right. And they say that that's awful and terrible and horrible. Why? Why is it awful and terrible and horrible? We'll finally have a judgment on the veracity of the 2020 election. If these election deniers get run out of the elections in disgrace and humiliating defeat, well, then we can sit there and say that 2020 election was a great election, wasn't it? Well, what if all of them get elected? What does that tell you? Well, shoot, that means that there are an awful lot of people who don't believe the 2020 election was even close to being honest. Then what do you do? That's why USA Today has turned itself into a propaganda rag for the Democrat National Committee. That's why it's destroyed itself as an honest, true journalistic source. And since it's the national newspaper, guess what? That's news. When USA Today decides they're going all in on the traditional Republican Party, and that traditional Republican Party is being destroyed by Donald Trump, and all these Republicans that are sitting around saying, we disagree with the president of the United States for this reason, and we disagree with him for that reason, and so on. Well, why? Would Democrats do that? Democrats don't even disagree with a guy who was addled and mainly out of his mind, no matter what he says. They defend him to the very hilt. Why? Because that's what political parties are supposed to do. Is that what the Republican Party did with President Trump? The answer is no. Is the Republican Party in trouble? Absolutely. Why? Because it's something that this particular column, the second of these in this series, asserts, which is completely wrong. Let me give you what I'm talking about here. When Wyoming Republican Liz Cheney lost her primary in August, it raised many questions about who is still welcome in the Republican Party, because it's hard to get more conservative than Cheney, the daughter of former Vice President Dick Cheney. She even had a record of voting with former President Donald Trump 93% of the time. She described herself as a conservative Republican who believes deeply in the policies of limited government, low taxes, and a strong national defense. I'm sorry, did you vote for the $1.9 trillion infrastructure bill? Oh, that's right, you did. Anyway, after January 6th, when Trump supporters stormed the Capitol and Trump didn't do enough to stop it, like the Democrat politicians from one end of the country didn't do enough to stop the BLM riots, Cheney had enough. Her involvement in congressional hearings investigating the riot and her decision to vote to impeach Trump after January 6th did not endear her to the party faithful. Right. It did not. Why? Because it was the wrong thing to do. Because that's not what the party wanted her to do. The party in Wyoming blew her right out of the water. Why? Because she didn't represent them. She represented herself. Okay? You only have one vote, Representative Cheney. You only have one. The people that put you into office, they're the people that you have to do the business of, and you refuse to do it. Liz Cheney's the perfect microcosm of what the Republican Party does not get done for the people of the United States. And then the column continues. Do traditional conservatives like the Cheneys, the Bushes, and the Romneys still have a home in the GOP? Well, the Cheneys, the Bushes, and the Romneys are not conservatives. They're not conservatives at all. They are Republican functionaries. The Republican Party isn't a conservative party, and that's where the problems, this is where this column starts to fold in on itself. So, do traditional conservatives like the Cheneys, the Bushes, and the Romneys still have a home in the GOP? Or is Trumpism the new standard moving forward? Answer to those questions are complicated. The overriding takeaway for conservatives is that the Republican, and listen to this, the overriding takeaway for conservatives, in other words, what all this means for conservatives is the Republican Party is still the best place for those who hold the ideals of small government and personal responsibility. Baloney. Absolute baloney. The Republican Party has done nothing to stand for small government and personal responsibility. Nothing. They've done nothing. Certainly not with small government. They've done nothing. The challenge for the GOP is to keep those Republicans in the fold while the new Trump-aligned activists aim for a bigger role and push conspiracies and an agenda that doesn't mesh with mainstream conservatism. USA Today wouldn't know what mainstream conservatism was if it sat in their lap and breathed into their face. They have no idea what mainstream conservatism is, and neither does the Republican Party. It's simple. The people who own this country are the people at the beginning of the Constitution, we the people, not we the Republicans, not we the politicians, not we the Democrats, we the people. This is our country. And this government doesn't come close to doing the people's business. Oh, it does business for the people, but it's not what the people want. The people do not want to have to hire somebody else to understand an incomprehensible tax code. The people of the United States don't want executive branch agencies without the benefit of actual law, pressing their regulations as if they were law and actually ruining people's lives that way. The Republican Party has done nothing to force the codification of all of these executive branch agency regulations. The Supreme Court of the United States is getting ready to stomp on the EPA again because for some reason they claim ownership to whatever water hits whatever land anywhere in the United States, and they get to determine what it is and isn't. And if you're outside of those determinations, well, you're screwed. No, that's not what the Republican Party has done anything to dissuade or stop. All of these things are passed by politicians for the sake of politics and for the hindrance of the American people. The government of the United States does not exist to hinder the American people. They exist to serve the American people. Ask yourself this question. Does the government of the United States serve you? Or does it manage you? Does this government do what you want it to do, or does this government tell you what it wants you to do? The answer is the latter. The government tells you what you will do under pain of what? Law? No, under pain of regulation. The simple case of the matter is this. The IRS should have no enforcement capability. So why are they hiring 87,000 people with enforcement capability in the form of a 9mm pistol on their hip? It's ridiculous. Did the Republican Party do anything to stop that? No. Well, they can't. They don't have the power. Oh, yeah, they do. It's plainly against the Constitution of the United States, and that's another thing. You want a political party to win in the United States? Then anything that has to do with anything being passed in the government legislature has to be constitutional before it's voted on. It has to be constitutional. These people are passing laws that aren't constitutional. As a matter of fact, Nancy Pelosi, in one of her first runs as Speaker of the House, said, we don't have to pass constitutional law. Oh, yes, you do. Has the Republican Party done anything to stop that? No. They've had power. Have they used it? No. Have they used it to the benefit of the United States? No. Have they done it to the benefit of the people of the United States? No. Trumpism is not because of Donald Trump. Trumpism is because the people of the United States are sick and tired of this garbage that we keep having foisted upon us by people who believe genuinely that they are our betters. They know more about everything than we do. That we don't agree with their political agenda is just because we're stupid. We don't know what's good for us. We do. We in Washington, we know what's good for you, and we know that you driving an electric car will save the planet. Horsepucky. That's not what the government's for. The government stands back and watches the automobile industry and makes sure that the automobiles that they produce conform to a reasonable set of safety standards, not a reasonable standard of pollution standards or anything else. You do not impose on anything in the United States, well, you can only produce this much pollution. They did that for years to Detroit. And Detroit finally came up with cars that don't put out pollution. They put out water vapor and CO2. And guess what? The new pollution is CO2. What a crock of crap. No, the government should just make sure that the cars are safe. They should make sure that people are getting a reasonable product for their money. That's it. They shouldn't tell them what kind of cars to build. They shouldn't tell them what kind of cars not to build. They shouldn't tell General Electric that they can have a monopoly on these curly Q light bulbs that immediately got surpassed by LED light bulbs. And by the way, when it comes to LED light bulbs, I've got an entire house full of them. Why am I paying more in electricity than I was before when I was using incandescent lights? Why is that? I thought I was going to save some money. Did that actually happen? No. But they actually made incandescent bulbs illegal. Is that the job of the government? The answer is no. What am I describing to you? I'm describing real conservatism. That's what I'm describing. Does the Republican Party fit into that description in any way, shape, or form? The answer is no. The answer is no. They say, are the Cheneys and the Romneys and the Bushes, do they have a part in America's new Republican Party? Or is it all Trumpism? It's none of your damn business. The Republican Party of the United States is either going to exist because it listens to the people of the United States, or it's going to disappear because it doesn't. The Democrat Party is being destroyed by the progressive wing of the Democrat Party. It's not even a wing. What it is a delirious gang of people who want to turn the United States of America into Cuba for the sake of political power and nothing more. There's no reason for them to do it. And plenty of reasons for them not to do it. Hell, the Republican Party cannot even come up with a reasonable argument against that, let alone actually defeat it in an election. How do we know that's true? Here's how we know that's true. AOC keeps getting reelected. If I was the Republican Party, I would sit there and go, okay, look, I need to know whether or not the congressional district involving Queens is an American congressional district or whether or not it's an outpost of Cuba. Because if it's an outpost of Cuba, well, we're going to stop supporting it because, you know, it's not the government's job to propel something that would destroy the government. Nobody in the Republican Party said don't go to Queens because they're run by communists there. There's more. It's next. Stay where you are. Thank you. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. If you think this show is valuable, please share it with your friends. Please pass it along to people that you think could use it, by all means. If you do want to support the broadcast, subscribe to it. Ask your friends to subscribe. Also, if you'd like to just hit the like button, that works. Subscriptions are going up pretty well, actually. I'm very pleased. It's really kind of nice. So why don't you share that with some of your friends? Also, if you'd like to participate in supporting the show financially, go to patreon.com/The Wells Report. patreon.com/The Wells Report. Cost you $1 a month. Thanks very much. I appreciate it. So we get back to all of this, and what we find is that we find the people of the United States are essentially being goaded, if you will, We're being pushed to think the right things according to the politicians of the United States and the politicians who are masquerading as journalists. That's right. This is awful. There is nothing else that is more dangerous to the United States of America. If USA Today wants to talk about what the true danger is to the United States of America, here it is. Here it is. A malfunctioning free press, which is no longer a free press. A monolithic leftist cabal of anti-Americans. That is what's taken over for the free press of the United States. They've turned themselves into a propaganda organization because they're trying to tell Republicans what they should be doing and what they shouldn't be doing and who they should support and who they shouldn't support. And not just for the future of the Republican Party. No, for the entire nation. The Republican Party has nothing to do with the future of the United States, nor does the Democrat Party. We, the people, are the authorities about what happens to the United States and what the future of it is. How would these op-ed pieces be different if the people writing them had some idea that actually was the case? How would they be different? They'd be talking about how the Republican Party is not doing the people's business and how the Democrat Party is being overrun by socialist communists that hate the nation and thus have made themselves, the entire party, into a threat against democracy, all the while talking about how, no, it's them that are the threat to democracy. In that ridiculous college juvenile delirium of accusing somebody else of what you yourself are doing. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely juvenile. Both of these political parties need to work to the betterment of the nation, not to fundamental change of the nation. Why would you change a nation that was truly the greatest nation on earth, demonstrably the greatest nation on earth? Why would you want to change it? Wouldn't you just want to be good stewards of it? Wouldn't you want to work your way through to saying, how can we make this better instead of making it more of an advantage for politicians? That's what you'd be doing. Is that what's happening? No. And the people not doing it are being ably assisted by the mainstream media, who is biased. That is the biggest threat to this nation. The biggest threat to this nation. And it's horrifying that we're even having this conversation. You know, the USA Today is talking about how Trump needs to be gone from the Republican Party for the sake of the party and the nation. Well, listen to this. From Fox News, incumbent Alaska Senator Lisa Murkowski is in danger of losing the seat she's held for 2 decades to a challenger from her own party backed by former President Donald Trump. Donald Trump has had a spectacular career in endorsing politicians. Spectacular. A Republican has a 99% chance to win next month's Alaska Senate election. Republican challenger Kelly C. Shibaka considered most likely to emerge with the victory at 53%. Shibaka, a Trump-backed Republican challenger who previously served as commissioner of the Alaska Department of Administration, is in a tight battle with Murkowski after the incumbent senator generated controversy by supporting the impeachment of former President Donald Trump. Mistake. This is one of the stalwarts of the Republican Party not doing the people's business. What a stupid mistake. And this is what happens when you're when you're in office for too long. You actually honestly believe that it's your office. That whatever you think is completely correct. And that's not the case. and political defeats litter the countryside of people who honestly believe that their thoughts were more important than the people who put them in Washington in the first place, the voters. Liz Cheney, a perfect example, a perfect example. There couldn't be a better one. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Telephone number 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. The end of hour number 2. 3 is next. Stay where you are. Back with more of the Wells Report. Okie dokie. And off we go. North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. We bring you the news. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We make comment on the news. And then we debate. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. That's what we do on the Wells Report. This is hour number 3. A couple of interesting debates in the first hour, second hour. I'd like you to go back and listen to them. One was a discussion about racism in the United States and whether it's actually racism. And whether or not, say, for example, reparations is just another way for Democrats to buy votes. And then second last hour, we spent some time talking a little bit about how political parties in league with American media have turned both into the laughingstock, if not denizens, of the American people. This time, we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about the United States minding its own business or not. President Biden, according to USA Today, condemns Vladimir Putin's brutality and pledges support for Ukraine. As a matter of fact, let me see if I get that. Unwavering support for Ukraine after Russia unleashes its deadly retaliation strikes. And here are live updates. This from USA Today. Kiev was struck by multiple missiles for the first time in months today. Several other Ukrainian cities took severe blows in what Russian President Vladimir Putin called retaliation for a weekend explosion on a major Russian-built bridge. 14 civilians were killed, 100 were wounded. Ukraine Emergency Services reported homes, businesses, roads, vehicles left in ruins 2 days after a major bridge linking occupied Crimea with the Russian mainland was damaged by an apparent truck bomb. Putin blamed Ukrainian special forces for the blast. If attempts to carry out terror attacks on our territory, Russia's responses will be tough, said Putin said in a meeting with members of Russia's Security Council. No one must have any doubts about that. Putin, his defense ministry, used long-range air, sea, and ground-based precision weapons to strike Ukrainian energy, military command, and communications facilities. Civilian areas like a playground and a university were also hit. Nice touch. President Joe Biden, who spoke with his Ukrainian counterpart, Volodymyr Zelensky, on Monday. What? President Joe Biden spoke with his Ukrainian counterpart, Volodymyr Zelensky? Is Nancy Pelosi going to impeach him for it? Where's Alexander Vindman? Was I being sarcastic? I guess I was. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. Where were we? Oh, yeah. By the way, President Biden condemned the strikes that killed and injured civilians and destroyed targets with no military purpose, demonstrate the utter brutality of Mr. Putin's illegal war on Ukraine. Missiles hit civilian infrastructure in the center of Kiev during morning rush hour. Among other major cities battered by the strikes were Dnipro in the center of the country, Lviv in the west, Kharkiv in the northeast, and Zaporizhia in the south. Ukraine's military and Russia launched 84 missiles, most of them from drones, 56 of them shot down by Ukrainian air defenses. Critical infrastructure, mostly energy supply, hit in 8 regions. More than 30 fires broke out in Kiev alone. The world once again saw the true face of a terror state that is killing our people, Zelensky said in a social media post. On the battlefield in peaceful cities, a country that covers its true bloody essence and goals with talks about peace. Yeah, war is hell, isn't it? Yeah. And so the United States pledging unwavering support of Ukraine. Should we be doing that? Should we be doing that? Because if we're actually doing that, does that mean we're looking for an actual war with actual Russia? You know, when you become the party to an armed conflict, you go to war with the people that you're trying to. You go to war with the people the people you're supporting or fighting against. This is Russia. Do we want to go to war with Russia? 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. Do we want to go to war with Russia? Yes or no? Do you want to have a war with Russia? I mean, we just got finished with Ukraine. Gosh, it's been not Ukraine, Afghanistan. Gosh, it's been 2 years. Shouldn't we be in war with somebody now? It's been a long time. Maybe we should get back to the war biz. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think this has anything to do with us. And I think it's fraught with genuine danger. Why in heaven's name would you want to buy into a war against Russia? Now, I say that in point of fact, there are good reasons to go to war with Russia right now. If the United States was ever going to go to war with Russia, this would be the time. Why? Because it would be like us going to war with Italy. Well, now, wait a minute, John. They have all those nuclear weapons. Yeah. Yeah, I know. There might be 1, 2, maybe even 3 of them that actually hit the United States if Russia decided to just chuck it all and fire everything. Now, what do you mean, man? There's a Soviet missile submarine out there that's got like multiple independent vehicles that can hit a bunch of... Yeah, huh? Well, there are reports that we don't know where it is. We know where it is. We know where it is. It'll never get to the surface and never fire any weapons, or close to the surface. It'll never get there. What about the silos? Those missiles will never hit the United States of America, ever. They simply won't. Now, there might be a couple that get through because of luck or malfunctions or what have you. 1, 2, maybe 3. Maybe. I'm betting 2. But the simple case of the matter is that if you really wanted to go to war with Russia, now is the time, because they just don't have the economic power to go to war. Oh, they have plenty of weapons. How many of them would actually work? We don't know. How many of them would actually find their targets? Most would not. If not, just a very small percentage would. It's one of the reasons why they decided to stop going to war with the United States. It's one of the reasons why the Cold War ended. Because they realized, we can't win this war. They still can't win this war. Oh, they can play politics with it. This political slap fighting between Vladimir Putin and Joe Biden, that's not real. Russia doesn't want to have anything to do with a fight with the United States. They can't even defeat Ukraine. Now, in point of fact, if they wanted to defeat Ukraine, what they would do is they would start destroying everything there is that was Ukrainian. And I suppose they would have the weapons to do it. But would they have the will? Vladimir Putin may have the will, but do his soldiers have the will? I don't think so. Let me ask you a question. Let's take a look at the 101st Airborne. If they were ordered to attack, let's say Fort Worth, take control of the city, kill anybody that gets in your way, would they do it? Some of them might. The rest of them? No. No, they wouldn't. Call up the strategic might or the tactical might of the United States Air Force. How many of those guys would actually fly those missions against their fellow countrymen? We, the people of the United States. Not many. There'd be a few. Not many. A large percentage of the Russian armored vehicles have been deployed or destroyed in Ukraine. Correct. That's right. The interesting thing about them, were they banned by Russians at the time? Or were they just abandoned out in the middle of nowhere? Russians communicating with Russians. Hey, Yuri, there's a T-80 over there. Why don't you guys shoot it so that we don't have to die in it? Okay. You don't think that's happening? Oh, it's happening. Well, what about those Russian troops castrating that guy? Yeah, there are some real maniacs out there. That's absolutely true. But are all of them? No. No. But the people of the United States, and this is really the point, we don't care. This is between Russia and Ukraine. The people of the United States have no dog in this hunt. Now, Joe Biden might want to be a wartime president, and suppose he gets us into a war with Russia. Well, that would be flamingly stupid. That wouldn't just be stupid, it would be beyond idiotic. There's no need. There's no need. Well, we gotta do something about Russia because they've cut off natural gas supplies to Europe. I don't care. Why don't I care? Because the people of the United States financed NATO for decades during the Cold War. And when the Cold War was not cold and it wasn't a war, those very same people that we defended for decades started doing business with Russia. Why? Well, because they didn't have to do business with the United States? Maybe. Or maybe it was because at that particular moment, the people of Europe realized that if it came right down to it, Russia was probably a more reliable source of natural gas and petroleum than the United States. Because you have no idea what the United States is going to do with their own petrochemical situation, their own natural gas, their own coal. It's based on the politics of the moment in the United States. We went from a net exporter of energy to now another consumer state, beholden on our enemies for our energy needs. What we should be doing is we should be selling natural gas in just unbelievable quantities to Europe because they don't have it for the winter because Russia's playing games. We don't have to fight with Russia. What we have to do is we have to fight with a guy who doesn't believe in what he calls fossil fuels. And we should start producing it. And we should start shipping it to Europe and making money hand over fist. Oh, you got problems with Russia? Okay, that's fine. Tell you what we'll do. We'll sell you natural gas. But no, President Biden seems to want to get us into a war with Russia. Unwavering support for Ukraine. Okay, so you're running Russia. You're running Russia. The United States wants to buy into a war with one of your former provinces. Are you going to start taking shots at the United States? Yeah? I mean, why wouldn't you? Do we really want to buy into this? I really don't think we do. I really don't think we want to. And I think it would be idiotic for us to continue. And that means a conversation with the president, which we'll have next. This is the Wells Report. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Telephone number is 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. If you'd like to support this show, please do. Pass it along to your friends. Subscribe. Hit the like button. If you'd like to take care of it financially, you can do that as well. Go to Patreon, patreon.com/The Wells Report. Cost you $1 or $2 a month. $1 or $2 a month? I think the show's worth $1 or $2 a month. Don't you think? I think it is. I'd pay $1 or $2 a month. Oh, wait. You know I do. Anyway, go to patreon.com/The Wells Report. Thanks very much. By the way, do I think we're being poorly served by President Biden's or whoever's actually calling the the foreign policy shots in the Biden administration? Am I the only one that thinks that it's kind of askew? No. Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo yesterday categorized President Biden's quickly notorious Armageddon comment regarding nuclear risk posed by Russia as reckless and demonstrating, quote, one of the most greatest foreign policy failures of the last decades. He went on to say this, quote, "Oh my goodness. First of all those comments were reckless. I think that even more importantly, they demonstrate maybe one of the greatest foreign policy failures of the last decades, which was the failure to deter Vladimir Putin the same way the Trump administration did for 4 years." When you hear the president talking about Armageddon at random, as a random thought musing at a fundraiser, that's a terrible risk to the American people if he truly believes that he ought to be talking to us in a serious way. He believes it. President Biden believed what he said. He absolutely did. And if he didn't, it really makes no difference. Because anybody with any brains at all, at least in my humble opinion, would hear a president of the United States say that and would definitely assume he was serious. President Biden, speaking at a Democrat fundraising event Thursday night of last week, veered into talk about Ukraine, saying Putin was not joking when he talks about the use of tactical nuclear weapons or biological or chemical weapons. "We have not faced the prospect of Armageddon since Kennedy and the Cuban Missile Crisis." Suggested the threat from Putin is real because his military is, you might say, significantly underperforming. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre, on Friday, did not directly respond to questions about whether President Biden had gone to the event intending to evoke Armageddon, as the White House sought to clarify the president's off-the-cuff remarks. Yeah. She told reporters Russia's talk of using nuclear weapons is irresponsible. There's no way to use them without unintended consequences. It cannot happen. She asked that if the Cuban Missile Crisis has taught us anything, it's the value of reducing nuclear risk and not brandishing it. Pompeo, on his appearance in Fox News Sunday, also reacted to the Saturday explosion that caused the partial collapse of a bridge linking the Crimean Peninsula with Russia, the one we were just talking about. It damaged an important supply artery for the Kremlin's war effort. Nobody immediately claimed responsibility for the blast, which killed 3. Pompeo said this, quote, "My guess is Ukrainians had something to do with it, but we're going to have to wait and see how that unfolds. We do know for sure that this is humiliating for Vladimir Putin. He built the bridge. I remember pictures of him driving across it. It was one of their great achievements. I think it was 2018 when that bridge was built, so it's nearly brand new. To watch it in flames, to watch the rest of the supply lines out of Crimea into southern Ukraine at risk, is certainly something that is a game changer on the ground in Ukraine." As was reported this morning on Fox News, Ukrainians are doing phenomenal work of liberating town after town, and the Russian military is failing desperately. We do not need to buy in to a Russia-Ukrainian war. It is a giant mistake. Absolutely a giant mistake. We should not give unwavering support to Ukraine. We should give unwavering support to the people of the United States. When will politicians running this country realize that? This is the Wells Report. We'll be back with more coming up in just a moment. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. So last week, it came out that there may be charges against Hunter Biden from the DOJ. Now, remember, there was a grand jury looking at Hunter Biden's business dealings. And those people left their actual grand jury term expired without charges. The DOJ can't do anything without an indictment unless they present a set of charges to the defense attorneys and the defendant and offer a plea bargain. If the plea bargain is accepted, then they move forward with the case and it sits before a judge, and that's that. Now, what's interesting, there is no double jeopardy in the United States of America. In other words, the DOJ can gather up all of the, shall we say, cogent charges against Hunter Biden and say, hey, look, we can indict you with this, or you can agree that these are things that you have done, and what we'll do is we'll work it out so that you take a plea bargain, very likely that will not include jail time and all number of other things. They probably won't even be felonies. But the interesting thing about it is that since there is not double jeopardy, when Republicans take over in the House of Representatives and demand that there be something done about these business deals, well, we won't be able to do them because, well, we've already tried them and there was a plea bargain accepted, and that's that. The only fly in the ointment would be, what if a federal judge said something about, oh, I don't know, we don't like the plea bargain, I don't like the plea bargain, I'm not going to let it go. I doubt that would happen, but I guess it's possible. What was interesting was on Maria Bartiromo's weekend show, there was a guy who is the ranking member of the House Oversight Committee. His name is James Comer. He had some very interesting things to say about the Biden family. Perhaps you would like to hear them.
We do know that prior to Joe Biden becoming president, any member of Congress had access to suspicious activity reports. One of the first rule changes Joe Biden made when he was president was he changed that rule. So Republicans have been blocked from getting the answers as to what triggered those 150 suspicious activity reports. Remember, Maria, that's the banks, and there were more than one bank, that notified the federal government that we believe our client has committed a crime. Now, he had 150 of these at least from at least 4 different banks. And yet we haven't been able to determine the extent of what exactly triggered these suspicious activity reports. We're going to request these again from Treasury after the November elections. We're going to expect to have these on day one in January in the Republican majority. If we don't get them, we will use subpoena power to get them. We'll also invite the bank CEOs to come in. And hopefully we won't have to subpoena them for that. But we're going to get those suspicious activity reports, and we'll be able to answer those questions as to why Hunter Biden and Jim Biden's personal banks notified the federal government that their clients, who they knew at the time were the son and brother of the sitting vice president of the United States, we are confident they committed a crime. So this is very serious. I'm very disappointed that the mainstream media hasn't picked up on this, because this is a pretty sure indication that there was criminal activity. That means they were probably doing business with people who had sanctions or countries who had sanctions against, that America had sanctions against these people and these countries. But yet the average American couldn't do business with them, but the Biden family could do business with them. And the business they were doing, Maria, is what you just stated in the email. They were influence peddling. They were helping these people navigate the bureaucracy. They were trying to get Chinese energy company, Ukrainian energy companies through the back door so they could start getting a foothold on American energy. That is counter to everything every American citizen should want, especially now with record high energy prices.
All right. That was from Fox News. So, when it comes right down to it, now we're in a situation where the ranking member of the House Oversight Committee is saying that he believes members of the Biden family committed a crime. How far does that go? We don't know. We don't have any idea. But this is far worse than anything President Trump has ever been charged with. This is graft and corruption. This is influence peddling. This is everything that's wrong with American politics. Everything. It's illegal. And I am absolutely sure that we know about this string of charges that may or may not be applied to Hunter Biden. And the reason that may or may not be happening is because they want to inoculate him from the very thing that Representative Comer is talking about. They don't want to have anything to do with it. What they want to do is they want to get rid of it, sweep it under the rug. Bye-bye. Yes, that terrible Hunter Biden. Oh, yeah. That terrible Hunter Biden. Yeah, he's a bad guy, and that's why we put him in jail. Or not. That's why he's now on probation. Yeah. This guy's guilty of felonies. We know he's guilty of felonies. It's in the public record. I mean, Trump associates get their door pounded on at 5 a.m. They get arrested at airports. They get put in leg irons. And what's happening and have they committed felonies? Well, we don't know because, they were arrested. They were indicted, they were arrested, but had they been proven guilty yet? No. Is Hunter Biden's guilt under any kind of question? Is there any question to Hunter Biden's guilt? The answer is also no. The answer is also no. And yes, Representative Comer is absolutely correct. If we do not get these suspicious reports, suspicious activity reports, we will subpoena them. We'll invite the bank CEOs to come in. We hopefully won't have to subpoena the bank CEOs. But for that, we're going to get these suspicious activity reports. We'll be able to answer those questions as to Hunter Biden and Jim Biden's personal banks notifying the federal government that their clients, who they knew at the time were the son and brother of the sitting vice president of the United States, we are confident they're committed a crime. You know, this is all tied together with the president of the United States, and it's not going anywhere. And I am extremely concerned about the future of all of this. You know, this isn't some interpretation of what the president said on the telephone or what he said behind the microphone on January 6th. The CEO of Sinohawk Holdings has all of it. He submitted it to the FBI. They looked at it and said, "We'll get back to you." They haven't gotten back to him yet. It's the FBI playing politics. Now, I have to say this because I was talking about this in the first hour of the Wells Report. This is a Republican saying that when we have power, we will, I will believe it when I see it. I am reasonably sure, for example, that we are not going to see the Republican Party do much of anything. I'll believe it when I see it. You know, there'll be something else going on. We're going to absolutely deal with that, but not right this moment because we have this to take care of. Okay. Yeah, I'm not real impressed with anything a high party official says, because frankly, I haven't seen him do anything. John says it best. We know how that works. Exactly. Right before an election, by God, we're going to do all this. We're going to get all this done. We're going to get these awful people. After the election, well, we've got so much other business that we have to take care of. We really can't. Yeah, we'll see. And unfortunately, we will see. I could be wrong. Then there's this, while we're talking about the President of the United States, what is the Vice President doing? Well, the Vice President is on the road. She just got back from Asia. She just found out that her Secret Service driver can hit a curb and badly damage one of those black Tahoes. So what she did is after she came back from Asia, she went to another A place, this time Austin, Texas. That's right, Austin, Texas. She went to Austin. Isn't it fantastic? Yeah, she went to Austin. And she didn't go anywhere else in Texas. She just went to Austin. What was she doing? Well, she was raising money. A Texas border mayor, however, noticed that she went to Texas and said, you can't fly another 500 miles? Really? This from Fox News. A Texas border mayor called out both parties on America's Newsroom this morning, that on Fox News, arguing Republicans and Democrats are the root cause of the border crisis. He must be listening to the Wells Report. Quote, it's a crisis relative to immigration and border security. Unfortunately, we have a tendency to look beyond our borders for the elusive root causes, when in reality, and unfortunately, the fact remains, politicians on both sides of the aisle are the root of the cause, said Rio Grande City, Texas Mayor Joel Villarreal. Villarreal said no mayor or governor should bear the burden for what he's described as a broken immigration system. Villarreal says Villarreal is not confident that the influx of illegal immigration will end because neither party has delivered immigration reform in several decades. I know how to do it. Put me in, coach. And yes, Vice President Kamala Harris visited Austin this weekend, but declined to make a stop at the southern border. Why in heaven's name would you not? Why wouldn't you go to the southern border? There are two reasons. One, you're concerned about the backlash that going to the border might cause you right before an election. And the other reason is you don't give a tinker's damn about what's happening at the border. You don't care. The only reason that you might have any kind of interest in the border whatsoever is if you keep getting phone calls from people in New York and Chicago and Philadelphia and other places where these immigrants are showing up. That's the only reason you'd have any interest in it whatsoever. Right now, that border being wide open, that suits your political initiative. So there you go. She said this. No, I'm sorry. Villarreal said this. Border security is absolutely critical. We must exercise caution against our global enemies, exploiting our broken immigration system to inflict pain on Americans. And we must remain vigilant and cognizant of national security. This guy's got a future. This guy has a future. It's imperative American interests are front and center. He does listen to the Wells Report. The government should be operating to the benefit of the people of the United States. Otherwise, immigration would be untenable if immigration isn't taken care of. Immigration must benefit America for it to remain viable. Exactly. America's immigration system should bring the all-stars of citizens of other countries to this nation. All-stars. Well, wait a minute. Why would we want to do that? I'll tell you why. Because the people that are in those countries would see that if you were an all-star, hey, you might be able to come to the United States. Ha! What a good idea. I think I'll work harder in my country. Moreover, maybe people that were running those countries where people were coming to the United States would say, what do we need to do to keep these people in our own country? And maybe people would start having a better life because of all of this. But right now, the benefit of all these countries is to get rid of their poverty class. Get rid of the poverty class. We don't have too many people in our prisons. Why? Well, we sent them all to America. And they took them. This is the Wells Report. Back with more in just a moment. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. One of the coolest things that ever happened in my radio career occurred in Dallas, Texas. I was working at a radio station in this town, actually one I was the general manager of. And we found out that the Blue Angels were going to do a flyover of Dallas, Texas. Okay? And what ended up happening was I got in touch with some friends of mine out at NASJRB, Naval Air Station Joint Reserve Base. And I pointed out that it would be really, really cool for the Blue Angels to fly over the building that my radio station was in, and that I would be waiting on the roof to video said same. As a matter of fact, I did. Okay? And I told them where we were. And then I got up there and I mean, they had published the route they were going to fly. And I said, hey, wait a minute. You know, if you change this route and you go here, I'll be on the roof waving at you. The Blue Angels flew over. Not only did they fly over, to make sure that I knew that it wasn't a mistake, they hit their smoke trails as they flew over our building. I have a video of it. It was one of the coolest things ever. As a matter of fact, I'm actually getting shivers up and down my spine right now talking about it. Because those guys are, along with the Thunderbirds, the best pilots in the world. And they flew over my building, and I think it was a favor to me. It was awesome. Yvonne says, wow, that was awesome, JD. Yeah, I've got a video. It's amazing. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe they actually did it, but they did it. And I could not understand why anybody would not want them to do that. Yeah, I'll see if I can find it, and I'll put it up, okay? I will. I'll put it up. See if I can find it tomorrow, and I'll play it, okay? No, it actually happened. Anyway, the Blue Angels were going to do the same thing in San Francisco. It is Fleet Week, I guess, out there. Yeah, it's Fleet Week in San Francisco. It was canceled because of weather. And what happened after that? A Democrat city council member suggested that the planes should not be permitted to fly over San Francisco. He's a member of the Democrat Party. District 5 Supervisor Dean Preston describes himself as a democratic socialist. There is no such thing. There is only a socialist. There is no democracy in socialism. He said the plane should be banned from the city's airspace. The Blue Angels should not be allowed to fly over San Francisco, he wrote on Twitter. That's it. That's the tweet. Really? Preston did not elaborate further on why he decided to take issue with the U.S. Navy fighter jet demonstration team. His office did not immediately respond to Fox News for questions. Blue Angels ended up not soaring over San Francisco because the planned performance was canceled. Due to the weather conditions, we were unable to perform today at the San Francisco Fleet Week Air Show. We want to send a special thank you to the city of San Francisco for the hospitality. We're looking forward to clearer skies next year at San Francisco's Fleet Week 2023. Fleet Weeks were delayed on Sunday because of fog. This according to an announcement issued around 1 p.m. Thousands of people still made their way to Crissy Field for the events. So when I talk about the Democrat Party being in a situation where it's overrun by socialists, these self-described progressives, I am amazed at two things. One, why does the Democrat Party allow guys like this to wear their brand? Unless, of course, the Democrat Party is socialist. That's what it seems like. See, if I was a Democrat, I would say, hey, you guys, I'm going to give you the card of the San Francisco American Socialist Party headquarters. If you want political support from a party, you need to talk to them because you are officially out of the Democrat Party. Because you're not a Democrat. You're a socialist. Goodbye. Bernie Sanders, gone. Well, I want to caucus with the Democrats. Democrats would say, no, you're not a Democrat. You're not anywhere close to a Democrat. You're a socialist. Socialism is destructive. It's inhuman. It kills people. We don't need that. Go away. Bye-bye. AOC, gone. The rest of the squad, gone. All these people, gone. And why? Because they're anti-American, that's why. You see, these are the fighter pilots that would be enforcing socialist will on the people of the United States should they be able to actually take over. But he doesn't want them flying over San Francisco because it doesn't serve a socialist purpose. Why is this guy in elected office anywhere, even San Francisco? So that's one problem. Why didn't the Democrats say, no, we're not having anything to do with you. You cannot call yourself a Democrat. There's also something else. Why hasn't the Republican Party identified people like this and put candidates that can win up against them and then support them? Why wouldn't they do that? And then talk about how you're getting rid of people that hate America. Lots of problems with America's politics. This is the Wells Report, and I will see you again tomorrow. All righty. Okay. God bless all y'all. I hope you had a good time on that show. Thank you very much for watching. And I will do what I can to make sure that you have another broadcast tomorrow on most of this same radio network or podcast network or whatever it is. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you later, okay? Have a good one, and I will see you in about 23 hours. No,